Music, cool graphics, nerdiest kid you know, #1 podcast, blogcast, vlogcast, whatever cast, however it takes you to listen to me and find me on this. This is our kickoff episode, so it's a little bigger than most. But guys, let me explain to you how this kind of works. You know, for the longest time, I would read these comic books and I would kind of forget the storylines. So I would kind of write down these like kind of internal memos and Batman, Bane, and it was kind of weird. I had this little spreadsheet that I kept in my computer so that whenever the new issue would come out, I was able to open it, figure out, all right, so yeah, that's right. Let's see. Bane's coming up on this one. So I kind of got to this thing where I said, you know what, if I'm going to keep these detailed notes, maybe I should publish them and just sort of see what happens. I mean, maybe somebody wants to know what my thoughts are on it, or maybe somebody needs a recap or whatever. So that's kind of how this started. And this is going to kind of serve as a weekly or bi-weekly update of everything that I read for that week. This week I read 8 books, and that's not going to be the norm. So that's a lot of comic books for somebody to read in a 5-day period, but alas, that's what I did. 5 days and 8 books. And I said, you know what, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to kind of go through it. I'm going to tell you a little bit of what I thought about that. So check it out. We're going to meander through the halls of time here. Have a good time, and check it out. If you dig it, subscribe. Check out my blog, nerdiestkidyouknow.blogspot.com. So without further ado, let's get started. All right, so the first issue that I read this week, and I know this is an older issue, but it was all new, All Different Avengers #6. And you may remember, it looked a little like this, with big old badass Vision on the cover there. And the reason why he looks so bad is because Vision's totally gone evil and nobody knows why. So this comic came out February, but it was great to me. Basically, all of a sudden, Mr. Griffin, the guy that had bought Avengers Tower, turned out to be Kang the Conqueror, and everybody was like, oh man, here we go. So all of a sudden, Kang shows up, he starts fighting all the Avengers. Nova and Miss Marvel, they had been kicked out. Vision had kicked out Nova, and they weren't in the Avengers anymore, and everybody was like, well, what are we going to do? They realize something's not right with Vision. They roll back, they start fighting, everybody starts fighting Vision, and then that's when it kind of starts to kind of come to light that something's wrong. Turns out Kang is controlling Vision, and what he needs is Thor's hammer. What I thought was another weird thing about this issue was, Thor turns out to be this cancer patient, Dr. Jane Foster, and that was very, very awesome kind of a flip to me, which is really crazy. Now, what's really crazy, since the Secret Wars thing's been kicking off and they kind of changed up Captain America, and now Captain America is Sam Wilson, which used to be Falcon, and the Captain America, real Captain America, Steve Rogers is now old man Steve Rogers. Now it's kind of tough to follow, but I really do. I dig this series. I think this is a great series. I like what's happening in this, but at the very end, Vision turns back into a good guy. He freaks out. He has to go take off to collect his thoughts. Sam brings Jane to the doctor because, he doesn't want everybody to know that she's got cancer or whatever. It's their kind of little secret. But it was a pretty good book. I thought it was great. Written by Mark Waid. He wrote this. Penciled by Mahmoud Assa. And a cover by Alex Ross, Alex Ross covers. This guy's doing all the big covers. I mean, tons of Spiderman covers and everything. This guy's like their cover guy. But I thought it had good art. I thought it was a good issue. So I don't know what I would rate it. I guess I gotta have some sort of ratings, and maybe I'll work on that. But the thing with me, if Marvel or DC, if these books make it to publishing, do they need a rating? They're good enough to be published, so probably pretty good. But I'll tell you what comics I cannot read, and I'll tell you that coming up in just a second. All New X-Men #5. Now, I don't know really exactly where this series is going, but I'm going to be completely honest with you. I really dig this stuff. This is very cool to me. Now, after Secret Wars, Logan is now an old man, and he's no longer Wolverine. So they have a new Wolverine, X-23. Old, what's-her-face. She's now back to being Wolverine. which was, she's a clone of Wolverine to begin with. She is dating the original Angel, Warren Worthington. But the problem is that what she always does is she keeps like storming off into like these crazy fights, and she wants to be the first one to fight, and she wants to jump in these phrases that she knows is going to hurt her. She does it supposedly, to try to keep her friends from being hurt, but everybody's like, man, I don't know what's up with this sadist chick, because she's totally into getting beaten up. And the two lovebirds, Angel and Wolverine, they run into the Blob, one of the oldest X-Men nemesis ever. And of course, the Blob starts just like wailing on her, and he starts just beating her to a bloody pulp, and that kind of freaks out Angel, and he kind of doesn't know what to do. Then somehow, and I don't really know exactly what happened, maybe I missed this, but he like walks off, he says he's not hungry anymore, and then he just runs into Beast and starts beating up Beast. And then Heidi starts yelling at this statue of Jesus at Notre Dame. Oh, by the way, they're in Paris too. This all takes place in Paris. Then, what was really hard to believe that I really didn't understand is Cyclops wants to buy a soccer ball that he sees, and somehow he kicks it into this alleyway, and it just sort of finds its way to Blob, and then Blob's fighting them. And then Iceman, who's now apparently gay, since that was pre-Secret Wars, but these are the original X-Men that were kind of brought back way back in the day because Beast was freaked out because Cyclops was doing all of his mutant revolution stuff, so he went back and got the original X-Men, pulled him back into the current timeline. Iceman's struggling with his gay thing situations. He's talking to Kid Apocalypse about it. They don't know what's going on about it. It was really kind of a waste of pages and everything. I guess trying to make you understand that he is having some problems, but whatever. It kind of ends with a kind of a cool little like cliffhanger. Angel is waiting for Wolverine to kind of come to, and her healing factors, she's just being like, her bones are all being pulled back into sockets and everything. And he tells her he wants to break up because obviously he can't handle some lady who's just gonna keep like jumping into these terrible situations, and obviously all she's really interested in doing is hurting herself. But I'm looking forward to seeing what this issue comes. I will definitely read issue number 6. This was published back in February, written by Dennis Hopeless and pencils by Mark Bagley. I like this stuff. This was a good book to me, and I think I'm all in on all new X-Men. I'm gonna stick it out. We'll see where it goes. Spider-Man number 2. Now, I've told before, I've talked about on this blog, I really like Brian Michael Bendis. I loved him whenever he was with the X-Men and doing all that stuff over there. He's a great writer, I think. I mean, I know there's a lot of people that kind of tear him down, and that's fine with me, but whatever. I like this guy, and I really like where it's going on with this new Spider-Man. So after Secret Wars, actually, it wasn't really during Secret Wars. It was the Spider-Verse, and it was shortly before Peter Parker kind of switched minds with Doc Ock, and that's when they had the whole Superior Spider-Man, and then something happened to where they were all pulled into all these interdimensional things, and I think it obviously had something to do with Secret Wars. But one of the guys who was in this alternate timeline was Miles Morales, who was a 16-year-old kid who was the Spider-Man of that timeline. Well, after they all had to fight in the Spider-Verse, and everybody was kind of like getting together and fighting all of the different Spider-Man, including the Dr. Octopus Spider-Man, Spider-Girl, Silk, Spider-Ham was there. It was the greatest thing. But one of the cool things they wanted to follow was Miles Morales. Now, in this timeline, Miles Morales is in the Avengers with Falcon and with all those guys. And he shows up, and this demon shows up called Blackheart. So Blackheart shows up and just starts totally wiping out the Avengers, just like totally killing everybody. Well, all of a sudden, the real Spider-Man shows up. Blackheart freaks out. He's like, oh, I don't want to have anything to do with this. So then they kind of recap on the conversations that Miles and Peter had, and how Peter was taking off and doing this more international thing and becoming like this international Spider-Man. Miles Morales' Spider-Man can become the New York Spider-Man. And that's cool, and then they kind of come to, they start fighting. For some reason, everybody loves whenever Spider-Man in any type of deal picks up Captain America's shield. That's a big deal for everybody for some unknown reason. But he uses it. He beats up Blackheart. Everything's fine. And it kind of just sort of ends with like these kind of an open door thing. What was crazy is after the fight, there was all these people who were capturing the fight with cell phones. They got this all on video. Stuff goes viral. All of a sudden, everybody's freaking out because there's a tear in Miles' uniform. They see he's a black kid. Everybody's freaking out that Spider-Man is black. The new Spider-Man is a black guy. They are freaking out. Miles is like, I don't understand why it's that big of a deal. I just want to be Spider-Man. But the issue ends with Miles' grandma coming in, and she's about to like wail on him and straighten him out because he's been skipping some class. So really cool on that whole like, you know, old school Peter Parker deal where, you know, when Peter was a student, you know, back at Midtown High, and it's cool to kind of recap that. So, you know, I dug it. Good issue, and I like where they're going with it. Next up, Superman #5. Now, this is part of the DC Rebirth thing, which is still really cool to me, how they kind of like reset it. Marvel reset everything with the Marvel Now a couple years ago, and DC had the New 52. It really wasn't kind of jiving, so they all of a sudden they abandoned it. They went with the Rebirth. This is kind of a brand new timeline. And what's really cool is in this issue, the Eradicator shows back up. And I don't know if you remember the Eradicator from back in the day, but he was a pretty big badass. He shows up and he's ready to eradicate the human side of Jor-El, who is Clark and Lois's son, who's, you know, part Kryptonian, part human. Eradicator has to go ahead and just zap all of the human life out of John and take him into, absorb him into his body to be with all the Kryptonian souls. I don't really understand what his mission is, but that's kind of the gist. Well, Lois and Clark are trying to do everything they can do to save John. So Superman puts them in this submarine, flies the two, John and Lois, to the moon, sticks them in this bunker that Bruce Wayne built. So they start fighting and they're beating up each other, and it's getting hard and heavy, and it's apparently, you know, turning not so good in Superman's favor. Eradicator, like I said, still a pretty big badass. He eventually is starting to beat him, and so he absorbs Superman. Eradicator just sucks him in. So Superman is in his, you know, his little like, you know, soul psyche, and he tells everybody, hey, look, you guys got to let me go. I got to get out there and fight to save everybody, and, you know, let me win this fight. Eradicator's a bad guy. At the same time, Lois somehow happens upon some really awesome Hellbat suit that Bruce Wayne has been sitting on. So she puts it on. She immediately knows how to use it. So, I mean, you know how convenient that is. And she fights the Eradicator. So her and Jor-El, they totally start whipping him and start kicking his ass. And it's just, you know, a really good issue. And then all of a sudden, Superman talks to the Kryptonians that are inside of him and says, let me out. I got to get out of here. He lets him out. He comes out. He starts beating up Eradicator. And you know it's about to get real. So another really good issue. This was written by Peter Tomasi and Patrick Gleason, penciled by Doug Mahnke, and this is actually an older issue thanks to the wonderful print providers at DC. I'm waiting for issue number 6, but this was issue number 5, came out in August, so I'm really looking forward to it. I've already downloaded it. Wait to see what happens. So next week, Superman 6 is coming, so I'm looking forward to it. Another issue I really dug, Invincible Iron Man #7. Another Brian Michael Bendis book, but again, I love the dude. I can't really get enough of him. You know, it's just sort of, it's good stuff. Plus, Mike Deodato did this. Now, this came out back in March, but I mean, what are you gonna do? I always dig where they kind of change this Tony Stark to kind of follow the movie version of him, you know, the Robert Downey Jr. version, and he's kind of a womanizer, and I really think it's great. If you remember the last issue or issue before that, somehow they got into a fight. Mary Jane got a hold of the Iron Spider costume. I can't remember who he was fighting, but she like basically like just knew how to use it, which I always love it, man. How do these like ladies, they always find some sort of super suit, they put it on and it knows how to use it. I mean, Maybe Tony Stark just knows how to build tech that is just really that, you know, the UI is just that easy to understand. I mean, who knows? But it was, I dig him like doing his thing. So obviously he shows up to interview Mary Jane for this job. Mary Jane, she's not with Peter Parker anymore. He realizes that War Machine has not checked in a long time. Now he's been trying to find what's her name? He's going after this. I can't remember. He's trying to find the this really crazy ninja lady. But so he sends War Machine over there to go try and find her. He can't do it. He gets captured. All of a sudden, War Machine's in big trouble. So Iron Man freaks out. He hasn't heard back from him. He says, well, what are we going to do? I'm trying to find somebody. Well, Friday, who's Tony Stark's artificial intelligence kind of robot, says, well, we know there's one person you can call. You can call Peter Parker. And Peter Parker can send his bodyguard, Spiderman, over there to help. So Tony Stark calls Parker. Parker doesn't answer. Mary Jane says, oh, well, why don't you call him on this emergency line? He's like, an emergency line? She's like, yeah. She calls him. He starts swinging through the streets trying to find out what happened to Colonel Rhodes, a.k.a. War Machine. We see War Machine is in big trouble. There's some girl who's totally like ripping all of his body armor off and shutting it down. And then all of a sudden, Tomio, this huge Hulkbuster looking guy, starts walking in and he says, you know, we're about to kill you and you're going to be in big trouble. So Tony Stark's flying over there. Obviously, Spider-Man's flying around Tokyo because he's always in Tokyo, or seemingly. So we'll see if they can save him, you know. Hopefully the tech ninjas don't beat him up. So, you know, we'll find out. Anyway, another good issue. I loved it. Thanks, Brian Michael Bendis. Cheers. One of the brilliant things that I really dug what they were doing in Secret Wars was I really dug what happened to Wolverine. I thought that was really cool. And I don't really understand, and I know a lot of people don't really understand where Cyclops kind of played into all this and what exactly happened. When did Wolverine have a family? But Bendis wrote a limited series called Old Man Logan. And it was great. It was a 5-issue series. It was great. Well, now they've come out with a regular series, which kind of continued on. This art is just killer. Anyway, this is Old Man Logan number 3. So Logan has 4 people that on his arm that he wants to totally kill, and one of them is the Black Butcher. He kills him in the episode before, issue before. So now he's trying to find Mysterio. Well, he happens upon Kate Bishop, who, interestingly enough, is the other Hawkeye. And he's like, wait, you're the other Hawkeye. Again, she's like, well, what are you talking about? Stuff doesn't really kind of make sense. But she's like, look, I've been sitting here on board in this apartment. Let's go and find who you're looking for. Meanwhile, Old Man Logan passes out. He starts having like these kind of like, you know, flashbacks. He sees all the dead X-Men under the water at this beach that him and his kids and his wife are at, which again is strange because they never really went too much in depth for him having that type of depth and character. He wakes up. She says, let's go after Mysterio. They go find him. They kick open the door. Obviously, this is not Mysterio's deal because Old Man Logan's like, where's Mysterio? You know, in total Wolvie talk, and he just starts hacking people's arms off. Well, these dudes who were in there, they're like, man, we don't know who you're talking about. Hawkeye girl, Kate Bishop, she's like, look, Logan, it's clear that your timeline is not making sense. When they were on their way, she was kind of discussing some stuff on some sort of timelines, and you know, she was like, why is Thor a girl? And he's like, well, Thor's always been a guy for me. And that's whenever she can tell, wait a minute, this isn't exactly adding up. So she says, stop killing these guys. You're killing the wrong guys. Wolverine freaks out. He leaves. He goes on his own. He's mad. And all of a sudden, he gets hit by something. He smells something funny in the air. He gets hit by something. It's Captain America's shield. And he comes face to face with old man Steve Rogers. So I'm really thinking that's going to be cool. It's going to be in issue number 4 you're going to see grizzled old Logan versus grizzled old Steve. So who knows? It's going to be great. So I guess we're going to find out. Anyway, Brian Michael. No, this is not Brian. Brian Michael did the limited series. This is Jeff Lemire and Andrea Sorrentino. Again, I really like her art. This is good stuff, man. This is good stuff. This is a good series. So it's going to be awesome. Let's see what happens. You know, there's a couple of books that I have a hard time getting into and following. And one of them has been this character that Marvel has just shoved down your throat for now, apparently 25 years, because the issue previous to this was celebrating his 25th anniversary. But I said, you know what, I'm going to sit down. This guy kind of always aggravated me back in the X-Force days. I have his intro issue, X-Force number 98. But I'm talking about Wade Wilson, the, you know, media sensation, the new movie, Deadpool. The guy, here he is, everybody's favorite assassin, apparently. So I said, you know what, I'm going to sit here, I'm going to read this. And it turned out to be a pretty good book. Basically, Deadpool is having some problems. He's kind of trying to remember what's happening. He's been merged with one of his alter egos, this guy Madcap, who's been killing people intermittently against Deadpool's will. He's got the Mercs for Money, which is kind of his little like kind of A-team, totally going on these little missions. And finally he decides, you know what, it's time for me to figure out. I want to know what's happening. I want to do some soul searching. I want to know who killed my parents. So he goes on a fact-finding mission, and he finds out that this one guy, he says, oh, well, you know, we used to do these missions back in the day where our sole job was to take you out, but you were always with another guy. He says, well, who was I with? That's whenever he figures out, he's talking about Sabretooth. So Deadpool hauls butt back to some of this Avengers headquarters, this kind of like this satellite headquarters that him and his buddies use, and he says, you got to tell me where Creed is. Well, who's Creed? Creed is old man Sabretooth, who's now with the X-Men. Deadpool finds him on some sort of mission with Magneto, who also I'm reviewing as well. That's in the newest Uncannies, and which is another great issue coming up. I can't wait for the next one. We just did number 11, so I'm looking forward to number 12. But he says, you know what, I can't kill this guy with a bullet because Magneto's right there. He'll totally like zip the bullet off. So all of a sudden he says, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to wait till he's leaving, string a piano wire across the street, and totally almost just decapitates the guy. So Creed's on the ground. He's like, you know, and that's whenever all of a sudden Deadpool stands over him with his katana blade drawn, and he says, I know what happened here, Creed, or Sabretooth. You killed my parents. And he's about to come down with that sword, and you're about to find out what happens in the next issue. But I guess you sucked me in, Deadpool. Kind of aggravated me. I've never was on board, but maybe I'm in now. So let's see what happens in issue number 9. Again, this was, what was this one? This one was Gary Duggan, which was good, and written and penciled by Matteo Loli. This came out back in March too, but it's on Marvel Unlimited. You should check it out. So, good series. The very last comic book that I read this week was Batman number 6. And if you're going to read one last comic this week, this was a pretty good one to do it. Batman's issues 1 through 5 where it was a story called I Am Gotham. And what it is these two superheroes, twin brother and sisters, they've got powers where whenever they use their powers, they use some of their own life force. So they can be super and slowly be killing themselves. Well, in the last issue, all of a sudden, Gotham, the boy of the twins, he died because he like freaked out and they killed him, and it was this whole big mess. So the only one left is Gotham Girl. So she's totally like freaking out. She's totally not in her right head, man. So she's like talking to herself, and she starts shaving all of her hair off, and she starts going on these like cool like missions. So she totally she kills Captain Stingery, Kite Man, and Colonel Blimp. What was great about these guys, I did a little digging around. I think it was on IGN's website. All three of those guys are real Batman villains from like back in like the 30s, 40s, 50s. And what was really awesome was Colonel Blimp's mission. He was still on that same mission, and I think it was in 1982 that issue of Batman came out that kind of mentioned it. So this Tom King guy, I really dig it. This guy is a guy who kind of understands history, and he's always going to kind of go back. But bottom line, Batman talks this chick. He says, listen, you know, you really definitely got to calm down. Claire is her name. Claire, you got to calm down. He takes off his mask. He's like, look, my name's Bruce, and I also dealt with some personal trials in my life, some personal losses. So he gets her to kind of like chill. And then finally he goes to the commissioner, and she tells him, she says, hey, you want me to find out how to find an antidote? Well, here's what happened. This was, you know, all this whole like Hugo Strange thing and the Psycho Pirate, some sort of deal between them all and Bane. So now Bane's involved. Bane is in, he's over in the Santa Prisca prison, and he's got Psycho Pirate there, and there was this whole trade-off. So next issue, it's going to be cool. It's called The Night of the Monster Men. Now Bruce has to go back, and he has to go fight Bane again, which, you know, is always going to be entertaining. So Tom King, Ivan Reis, great stuff. This just came out September 7th. Good book, and I definitely think you should sort of check it out. So I think that's it for me. That's all I read this week. That's all. 8 books. So I tell you what, I really tried to get into the Doctor Strange series, and man, I just can't do it. These are guys that I just was never into. It took me, before Marvel was bought by Disney and they started coming out with all the Avengers stuff, I was never really that big of an Avengers guy. I couldn't follow the stuff, man. I have a couple issues of Avengers from, like, you know, the early 90s, some West Coast Avengers. You know, it just was never working out for me. I don't know, maybe it was always over my head, but I really definitely think this improvement, these new Avengers, are a huge improvement over the latest Avengers that was going on before Secret Wars, because that was like totally out there. But all these books that I'm kind of reading, I think they're all on the lead track. I really dig them, you know, because some of them are kind of some throw-out books. I think that All New X-Men is kind of a you know, it's sort of filler, but I dig the storyline. But you can tell that it's one of Marvel's. Marvel's like, yeah, we'll tell you a couple X-Men stuff. Coming up, I know I'm waiting for the newest issues of Extraordinary X-Men to come out on Marvel Unlimited. I'm waiting for Justice League to come out, the newest Justice League. Guardians of the Galaxy, I'm going to read some for coming up next week. The newer ones on Marvel Unlimited. I'm looking forward to the newest Amazing Spider-Man, because there's a really cool storyline going on in that. So, but that's it for me. And I think that we've talked long enough. And who will ever watch all this? Who knows? But next week, we're going to definitely do a kind of a pared down one, get down to basics, and kind of streamline this show. Hopefully, I'll have some more artwork up there, so it won't be so bare. So, for the nerdiest kid you know, I'm Sam Torito, and I really thank you for watching this. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel, subscribe to my blog. You can find me at nerdiestkidyouknow.blogspot.com, and just go on these adventures with me. Find out what's going on, you know. If you subscribe to it, get on my email list, because every now and then I'm going to send out one of my old books just randomly. Pick somebody off the list. Here you get an old comic book. So some really good ones, actually. So yeah, until next time, stay dirty, stay nerdy, and thanks for watching. Take care.